Hi, my name is Louise Clarke, and today I want to cover the medical aspects of using crack or cocaine. I've done other videos looking at the addiction, and also on the brain was the second video. This is the third video that I'm doing to cover the area that also is in my book, Stop Using Crack Cocaine and Reclaim Your Life, which I wrote for users, and I wrote in a language that any user could understand, really. Very simple, so it's in small parts, so that it's there's no excuse. Right, let's start. When we're looking at crack or cocaine, it doesn't really matter whether it's crack or cocaine, because they're the same thing in a way, because crack is made from cocaine, as you know, and it's washed usually with bicarb, and that just makes it smokable, but the results on the body are exactly the same, really, except one is maybe more extreme than the other. It depends. Okay, when we're looking at back in history at cocaine, it was first sort of used last century, beginning of last century, for surgery. It was used because it's good, because it restricts the blood vessels, makes them tight, so when they were doing surgery it stopped the blood flow, so that was good, and also it numbs the area, so that was good, but that's good for surgery. When it comes to using, you may be aware that people that use cocaine, they end up with abscesses on their nose, and sometimes parts of their nose falling out, coming out, and that's because of the restriction to the blood flow, which is a bit like when you was a child and you had a rubber band around your finger, and your mum would say, don't be doing that, because if you stop the flow to your finger, it'll rot. And it is. If you stop the blood flow to, say, your nose from snorting cocaine, then that area will start to rot, because it's not getting the blood flow, therefore it's not getting the oxygen and nutrition that it needs. And so that's what causes the problems in the nose. Now, when it comes to smoking crack, then it's causing these problems through the airways, right down into the lungs, and it's causing restrictions in the blood flow there. Therefore, you may find that if you're a crack user, you find that when you're coughing up lumps of black, brown stuff, and that's dried blood, and that's where there's abscesses forming on your lungs. Yes, it's not nice, but the addiction is not good, is it? So it's causing abscesses on your lungs from where it's restricting the area, nutrition and oxygen's not getting there, and therefore your lungs inside are rotting, and therefore when you cough, then bits of rotting lungs come up. So this is what's going on there. People also put cocaine on different various parts of the body, which we won't cover here, but we know that if we put, wherever we put it, it's going to cause, if you keep putting it there, it's going to cause a restriction in that blood flow in that area, and therefore rotting because of lack of nutrition or oxygen. Right, okay. Now, when we're looking at the body, and I'm trying to make this as simple as I can, when we're looking at the body, there's two nervous systems. There's one nervous system called the central nervous system, which controls the brain and the spinal cord, which is like really an extension of the brain, but people separate it. So the brain, and then it's like a cord that goes from the brain down the spine to give all the messages to the nerves. That's all covered in my second video that I made on crack and the effects on the brain. The other nervous system is what we're focusing on today. The other nervous system is called the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system is a bit like automatic nervous system, in that it works with, you don't even really have to think. It controls all the bodily functions, like breathing, heart rate, digestion, sweating, all those things are all done with automatically. We don't have to think to make our heart beat, or we don't have to, you know, they're things that are automatic. So when it comes to drug use, the drugs, whatever drugs we use, will affect the autonomic nervous system, and dependent on what drug is being used will affect it in different ways. So really drugs, we can divide them into 3 categories. Depressants, which is like heroin, cannabis, alcohol, tranquilizers. They're all slowing the body down, and so they're depressants. And then there's stimulants like cocaine, crack, methamphetamine, speed, and these are stimulants, so they speed the body up. And then the 3rd category, I'd say, is it's like hallucinogens, like LSD, and these are a mixture of hallucinogens and stimulants, but the hallucinogens will like send you on a tangent. That's all I'll put it into category. But today we're looking at, okay, crack cocaine is a stimulant. So when we're looking at the medical complications that arise from it, we're looking at how it affects the body by being a stimulant. Now, you may have heard before people talk about fight and flight and all this business. This is what it's related to, is when we're in danger, when we're faced with danger, our body is stimulated in a way and we're into a fight-flight situation. We have to decide whether to run or whether to stay and fight. Either way, we need our body to become very active, to become fast. If we need to run away, we need to speed up, get enough oxygen to the muscles to be able to run fast. If we need to fight, we need enough blood pumping through our body to move fast. So the fight, flight is a stimulant, is what stimulants induce. That reaction, whether there may be nothing going on, but as soon as you're using a stimulant, you're getting the body and you're telling the body be ready for action. So when we're looking at crack, we're looking at, well, I'd say there's 7 ways you can die. And yes, it's harsh, but people are dying, and I'm sure if you're watching this video you possibly do want to stop, so I'm just going to keep it real. 7 ways to die. One is, the first one would be to have a heart attack. As you know, when you smoke or use cocaine, any stimulant, then it races your heart. Your heart gets faster and faster and faster. And if you keep racing your heart, I mean, other people who are not using drugs, their heart may be pounding and they'll have a little rest. But if you're addicted to these drugs, then you don't have a rest, you have some more. And therefore you're pushing the heart to become too fast. Which you may really already experience palpitations of your heart, where your heart feels like it's pumping out of your chest. If we're going towards heart attacks, then it's where the heart is beating so fast that it either goes too fast that it just it's too much strain on the heart and the heart just seizes, or it becomes so faster and then it becomes irregular. Both ways are caused different. There's 2 types of heart attacks, or probably more, but there's 2 main types of heart attacks, and it will cause one or the other. So a common problem that we have is that people have heart attacks from using. The thing is, as well, is, I'll be realistic, the body can repair any part, but when it comes to the heart, the body can't repair the heart. So it's like the body's reforming itself and regenerating itself all the time, but it never repairs the heart damage. So this is lethal because, yes, common is, I've known clients to have 5, 10 heart attacks, and it's like, well, eventually each time their heart it may live, but each time their heart's being damaged. Second way is lung failure, and this is where, as I said earlier, when you're smoking, you're restricting the blood vessels in the lungs, so you're restricting the amount of oxygen being taken into the body, so therefore the lungs start working faster and harder to try and compensate for that, and the result is that the lungs are overdoing it, really, and they get faster and faster and faster until they slow down and stop, and that's lung failure. And the thing is, Again, if you wasn't using any drugs and you felt that with your lungs, you'd stop, you'd rest. But some users feel that and carry on using, and this is where, past that point, then they're looking at dying from lung failure. With regards to the lungs and repairing themselves, I don't know of any real research on it, but I know that years ago I saw research that showed that they x-rayed lungs of crack users and they saw all the little scar tissues on the lungs from using, but after time it would be good to x-ray to see if they, when they come back, if the scar tissue went down, but it was very hard for them to find subjects, but it did go down for some people. So I feel, yes, back to, I think the body does repair itself, and I think if you do stop, there is hope for you. The lungs can repair themselves and reform and get rid of all the scar tissue, or at least get rid of the abscesses. I don't know if they'll get rid of the scar tissue. Right, the next way, the third way, would be a stroke. When blood pressure, when the heart and the lungs are pumping so much, it increases the blood pressure. And if we increase our blood pressure too high, it's putting strain on the blood vessels in the brain. And if the blood vessels in the brain are too strained, eventually the weak vessels in the brain, if you've got weak vessels in your brain, they will burst. And if they burst, the blood leaks out of the blood vessel into the brain, and this is really what a cerebral hemorrhage is, or which we would call also a stroke. So it depends on where the blood vessel bursts in the brain as to how it will affect your world, because every different aspect of the brain works different parts of our life. So yes, the strokes often can occur. I don't know how often. It depends on the amount you're using. It depends on the strength of the blood vessels in your brain and so forth. But this is another way. And yes, it can kill you. The fourth way is epilepsy. It affects the part of the brain, the limbic system, which is at the back of the brain. It affects it and weakens the area, and gradually weakens and weakens. So if you are epileptic, it can increase the chances of having a fit. But even if you wasn't epileptic, if you keep smoking, you will keep weakening that aspect of the brain. And if you weaken it too far, then you will find that you're having seizures too. If you may not even be aware that you're having seizures, because when you have them, you black out and then you come round. So therefore you don't know, unless there's someone witnessing you having them, you may not know you even have them. The only way you would know is if you found yourself, smoking and then just passing out, and then you find yourself coming round and you don't know what happened, and you may have blood in your mouth where you've bitten your tongue or something, then you'd know you're having seizures. But if there's no one seeing it, you wouldn't necessarily know. You just know that you were passing out, and that's what's happening while you're passing out, very likely. And then yes, a seizure won't necessarily kill you, but there's grand mals, which are big seizures, which you can have eventually, and they can kill you. Okay, the fifth way is the blood sugar levels. Crack, cocaine, stimulants increase the blood sugar level, it brings it up, and therefore no, it wouldn't kill someone, an ordinary person, but person with diabetes, is for them to know that it will increase their blood sugar levels, and that can be fatal for someone who's diabetic. There's also a chemical in the body called pseudo cholinestrase. It's an endocrine hormone, and well, some people are deficient in it. and basically it's a hormone that breaks down. I don't know why it's there, but it's there, and it breaks down cocaine. It breaks down crack and disperses it from the body as a toxin. And some people are deficient in pseudo cholinestrase, and if you're deficient in it, then you've got nothing to break down the drug in your body, and then we're looking at a fatal situation. But it's very rare to not have it, but I'm just covering every angle so that you know. The seventh type is suicide. Because when you're coming down from the drugs, you can be very depressed, very low, and therefore you can look towards what's the point of life, blah, blah, blah. It happens, but as well, I'm suspicious when I hear cases of people who have supposedly committed suicide, because I also know that most crack cocaine users, rather than commit suicide, would seek more of the drug to try and avoid that low, rather than seek to kill themselves. I also see that it's an easy way of, if someone's on drugs and they're causing any troubles in the world, that we can see that they are killed, murdered, and then we can cover it up and blame it on the drugs and say, oh, they committed suicide, when it isn't the case. So I've sort of seen cases like that I'm suspicious that they're not suicide cases at all. One's like where they've thrown themselves out of tower blocks, and it's like, I don't think they threw themselves out of the tower block, I think someone threw them out. But this is just a reality, so I'm just covering it. Right. All this smoking and using the drugs, whether it's cocaine, stimulants, I mean, if you're using the drugs and not eating properly, that's going to cause all sorts of malnutrition problems. So that in itself, but also, even if you was eating properly, let's look at that. So if you was eating properly, you would still be looking at vitamin C deficiency, because the smoke actually causes to wipe out, like even smoking cigarettes, causes to wipe out vitamin C in the body, and vitamin C isn't stored in the body, so it's about probably supplementing your diet with vitamin C tablets, or having loads of orange juice. But it's about, yes, you'll be vitamin C deficient. And the other vitamin that's deficient, there's a deficiency in, is vitamin B. And vitamin B is for the nervous system. So when we're looking at, right, you're attacking the nervous system like no tomorrow. So if you're using these drugs, then the vitamin B will become deficient, and therefore it would be good to supplement that if you could. Then also another mineral, calcium. Calcium, I haven't never seen any research that shows that calcium is affected by using crack or cocaine, but I have seen many clients with arthritis, and they're young. I have also seen that they note that their teeth become quite transparent and clear and weak, and so it does seem to be that the drug affects somehow the bones and teeth, which is calcium is what we have to make them strong, so I assume that calcium is affected, and there may be deficiencies there, so maybe as well supplement the diet with calcium. When it comes to HIV, AIDS, viruses of the immune system, obviously this is all weakening the immune system by using the drugs. So no, it's not a good idea at all, obviously. Right, there's also crack-induced psychosis, which I want to cover. Because if you use too much, if you keep using, then you end up, the brain, I suppose it's the brain chemistry, but the brain starts going with, like, into a psychosis. You will see things that aren't there, hear things that aren't there, paranoia's coming in. You may see snakes climbing your legs or bees flying. Possibly fears that you have. Sometimes I've seen clients see dots going across the room, and so you will see things. But it's a crack-induced psychosis, and the reason I want to say it is because sometimes people get sectioned because they're seeing things, hearing things, having hallucinations, and then they're treated as if they've got a normal psychosis, but like a mental health issue that's not caused by drugs. When someone with a mental health issue that's not caused by drugs have a psychosis, they actually believe what they're seeing, they believe it's there, they believe that they're hearing what they're hearing. When it's drug-induced, when it's crack or cocaine-induced psychosis, the user knows that this isn't right. They know, is that be really there or isn't it there? They're questioning it. They're not in that drama, they're watching it. So there is a difference, and therefore I wouldn't recommend treating someone with crack-induced psychosis with medication that's used for people with the normal psychosis, if we call it normal. Really what you need to do is stop using and let the brain have a rest. If you let the brain have a rest, all the psychosis symptoms will go, or should go. If they're not gone within about 6 weeks, then maybe, yes, there's a problem going on. But they should go if you stop using. Depending on the hallucination, I mean, if you're a danger to others or a danger to yourself, then you do need to seek some sort of psychiatric help, because, well, this is not good. You don't really want to harm anyone else, and you don't really want to harm yourself. But if it's just you're seeing bees and that, you don't necessarily need to seek psychiatric help. You can if you want. You may get wrongly diagnosed, you might not be. Acupuncture, Chinese herbs, Wang, which I talked about in other videos, will help to alleviate these problems and will help rebalance the brain, rebalance the chemistry. And this is what's happened, is that the whole chemistry has gone out because you've used too much. So stop using, do things to rebalance the brain, like have acupuncture, Chinese herbs, something. Try and chill, try and do something other, and the brain will come back to normal. And if it don't, after 6 weeks, then yes, there's something else going on. But I'd give it that amount of time. Now also, to reduce harm, it's about if you're smoking crack, it's about what it's been washed with is important too. I mean, yes, we don't know what it's been washed with, because unless we know the person who made it, it could be washed with anything. But it tends to be washed with bicarbonate soda. If it's washed with bicarb, that's probably your best option, and you will know because it is white in colour. But if it's yellow in colour, then it's probably been washed with I've forgotten the name of it, ammonia. And ammonia is what I remember my mum pouring down drains, and really you don't want that going down your throat. So don't be buying yellow crack, although I've heard of pink crack and all different colours. So it's like, try and use a dealer that you know, so it's like knowing, it can be mixed with anything. Try and buy white, but I mean, just because it's white doesn't mean it's only been mixed with bicarb, but this is a risk you take. Then also, when it comes to what you use to smoke with, you try not to use cans and things like that, because the cans have got all paint, and you've got all the toxic fumes coming off of the paint, which isn't good, inhaling them. So it's better to use a pipe, and it's better to use a water pipe, because it would be easier on your throat. So yes, I think I've covered everything. Again, if you've any questions, please write in the comments below, and I'll try and answer them. the book that I wrote, I'll show you, is Stop Using Crack Cocaine. As I say, it's very easy. It just explains it all what I'm explaining here. Very simple. Look, it's not thick, it's not loads of concentration, big words, look. So that will also, I'll show you a link below this video for you to obtain that. Okay, I hope that I've explained it clearly to you, and I hope that you will choose to stop using and reclaim your life, because the drug shouldn't have your life. You own your life, so please take it back. And thank you for listening, and goodbye.